For over 60 years, the Great Lakes have been terrorized by this eel-like fish. It has numerous rows of razor-like teeth and a rasped tongue that allows this parasite-turned-predator to attach and drill into the flesh of its fish host, sucking the life from its body. This nemesis of the Great Lakes nearly wiped out a species of fish and still thrives today. The sea lamprey is just one more enemy in this daily battle with the silent invaders. Nature is just waking up. A crescent moon hangs on as it waits for the sun to take over. The sky is orange and the air chilled. Blue smoke spews from the stern of a rickety old fishing tug.
Oh, the diesel's the worst smell there ever is.
A new day is dawning on Lake Huron. For commercial fisherman Albert LeBlanc, it's time to go to work.
I'm the 5th generation, so it's just something that I wanted to keep the heritage going in the family, and I like doing it, you know. It's for all the headaches that are involved with it, it's actually fun to me.
Albert and his partner Duke White are 6.5 miles out, hoping to pull in an abundance of whitefish and lake trout from their gill nets into the belly of their boat. Their livelihood depends on catching fish.
Here's a good lamprey, Mark. It's on this whitefish.
A creature that has invaded the Great Lakes continues to threaten Albert's fishing business.
There's so dang many invasive species that have come in here, and not one of them have been good. And everyone has impacted us, and everyone has really hurt our fishing.
The effects of one of the most notorious of the Great Lakes invaders dates back over 60 years. As this 1955 Department of Interior film illustrates, a predator known as the sea lamprey had virtually wiped out the commercial and recreational fisheries in the Great Lakes.
During its adult life, the lamprey turns into a real vampire, feeding only on the blood and body juices of its victim. A fish is seldom able to free itself from a mouth like this.
The sea lamprey was probably the first invasive species that really took effect on the Great Lakes. They came in about in the 1940s, and you know, I can remember my dad saying up to about 1948, and I'm guessing on these dates that they were catching out of Charlevoix and Lake Michigan. They were catching about 5 million pounds of trout every single year, right to the fall, and in the spring there was none.
The sea lamprey is a saltwater fish that's lived in the ocean for nearly 300 million years. So how did this prehistoric parasite find its way to the world's largest bodies of fresh water? Many place the blame on the Welland Canal. Completed in 1842, the canal created a new highway for the shipping industry connecting the Atlantic Ocean via the St. Lawrence Seaway and Lake Ontario to Lake Erie. From there, they moved quickly into Lakes Huron, Michigan, and Superior. It's unclear just when sea lampreys entered the Great Lakes through the canal. Many believe the renovation of 1913 that expanded the canal to 25 feet deep and 80 feet wide was the invitation they couldn't resist. Albert LeBlanc is understandably angry. He watched his family business almost go under because of the sea lamprey, but the United States and Canada have declared war on the creature. It's a battle that will likely never end.
Okay, thank you very much. Zero clear.
Ellie Kuhn is just one of the soldiers on the front lines.
Some people will remember in the 1950s, the Great Lakes fishery was completely destroyed.
Michael Fodale has been on the battlefield fighting the lamprey for almost 3 decades.
If sea lamprey management was no longer being conducted in the Great Lakes, it would be a travesty on the Great Lakes.
A roadside motel near St. Ignace, Michigan, not far from the famous Mackinac Bridge. The sea lamprey management team is waking up to a new day.
Right now we are on the shore of Lake Huron near the mouth of the Albany Creek.
About 24 biologists and technicians in Ellie Kuhn's army are preparing to attack lampreys in the hundreds of spawning streams that feed the Great Lakes. The setting is serene, like a favorite screensaver. But this pristine site has an invader Beneath the surface, buried in the stream, lie young lamprey, still in their larval stage. Those larvae are about to be attacked using the management team's weapon of mass destruction, a toxic substance known as trifluoromethyl nitrophenol, or TFM. Scientists discovered a chemical deadly to the lamprey but non-toxic to humans, other mammals, and fish. They call this weapon lampricide.
Without question, this is the most important program to the Great Lakes. Without this program, we could not make progress towards lake trout restoration.
You can see some.
The lamprey are conceived and born here in the streams, where they live for about 4 years before migrating downstream to the Great Lakes to prey on fish like lake trout, salmon, and whitefish. The larva stage is when the lamprey are most vulnerable.
We run into a lot of just general public type people that are pretty unaware of the damage that these things can do.
Technicians walk the stream with a low-voltage device that shocks the larvae from their hiding spots. Then, pumps powered by a 12-volt car battery send lamprey poison into the water like an intravenous line into a vein.
So theoretically, if we treat the stream every 3 or 4 years before the larvae mature into transformers and go back down to the lake, we'll prevent them from ever maturing. But the fact is that we never kill 100% of them. There's always a few that are left. And those are the ones that are out in the lake damaging fish now.
Lampricide is highly effective in small streams like this one. But the mother lode of spawning lamprey come from the St. Mary's River, a wide navigable waterway that shares the border of the U.S. and Canada. And that presents our team with an even greater challenge. Coming up, how the Sea Lamprey Management Program controls this deadly predator even in this giant river, when Silent Invaders, the Sea Lamprey, continues. Silent Invaders is a production of the North American Media Group in cooperation with the Environmental Protection Agency and the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, and by the USDA Forest Service, Wildlife Forever, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, and these other organizations. There's nothing more exciting to the serious sport angler than to be out on one of the Great Lakes reeling in a giant lake trout or salmon.
Yeah, baby. That's the way it's done.
Sport fishing charters can be found virtually in every port. Scott Gitchow is part of the charter industry. He owns Real Action Charters in Sturgeon Bay and knows exactly what the attraction is.
The majority of the fish we catch are kings, the greatest fish of the Great Lakes.
Nice fish.
The sea lamprey almost devastated our trout population. Then alewives were a nuisance. They drifted up on the shorelines by the 2 or 3 foot thick. In the late 60s, king salmon were introduced to Lake Michigan to control alewife population. Never thinking about it as a sport fishery.
Yeah, baby.
I see the king salmon fishing as a success. We have people come from all over the 50 states.
It was real bad here about 4 years ago.
Commercial fishermen spend most of their waking hours out here and probably know these waters better than anyone. Albert LeBlanc's family has been fishing since 1860. He's been actively involved in the business since he was 10.
I would say in the last 20 years, these lakes have changed more than they've changed in the last 500 years because of the invasive species.
In the depths of the Great Lakes is a scene reminiscent of a nightmare. Slimy, snake-like creatures with suction cup mouths lined with rings of sharp teeth and a rasping tongue prey on the trout, salmon, and whitefish that live in these lakes. Sea lampreys are the vampires of the deep. Since 4 out of the 5 lakes straddle the U.S. and Canadian border, both governments are fighting these silent invaders with every weapon they've got.
Our battle is constant and we can't let up.
Here's a lamprey that's recently transformed from the larval stage and has developed its eyes and its sucker mouth and its fins and is ready to go out and feed on fish in the Great Lakes.
Eradicating the larvae with a toxic chemical before they reach adulthood is one of the most effective measures of controlling the lamprey population. Near Sault Ste. Marie, Canada, is the St. Mary's River, which connects Lakes Superior and Huron. It's a major breeding ground for the sea lamprey, but the river is 75 miles long and averages 22 feet deep. Using conventional methods of injecting lampricide into these waters would be futile, so they've come up with another method to do the job. It's a cool, misty spring morning. A high-tech boat is being readied to head out on the river. Bob Woodke, lead physical science technician with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, empties about 24 10-gallon pails of yellow granules into a bin in the back of the boat. Up front, the driver plots their course.
We're putting the map that we're going to spray onto the computer.
Situated in their brand new state-of-the-art boat, they are headed to pre-selected high-density areas where lampreys are most likely to spawn.
Years ago, we used to apply it in smaller amounts. This boat here, it applies it a lot quicker, a lot faster, more efficiently.
The yellow granules, called parasite, spews out of wing-like booms that stretch 25 feet along the stern. It's like seeding a farmer's field, but these seeds will plant themselves in the riverbed below, where the lamprey larva lies.
It's actually a pesticide that's coated on a sand granule with an encapsulation of a quick-release coating that allows us to spray the chemical out. It sinks to the bottom, and this coating then dissolves and allows the parasite to come off the sand granule.
It causes the larva to emerge from the mud, ingest a super concentration of the toxic chemical, and die.
Generally, we would average about 300 or 400 acres each year. This year, we're going to do well over 2,000 acres, and again, next year as well.
For the past 20 years, there have been more lampreys in northern Lake Huron than in all of the other Great Lakes combined. And the reason is the St. Mary's River. Before this program began, Michael Fodale says the larva population here was estimated to be around 5.2 million. Following decades of treatment, the larva numbers in the St. Mary's River are thought to be in the hundreds of thousands instead of millions.
Anytime we can reduce the number of lampreys, it's going to help all species of fish, because lampreys don't feed just on lake trout. They feed on salmon, chinook, and coho. They'll feed on lake whitefish. There's a lot of species out there. They're opportunists. So if we can reduce the numbers of lampreys, all the fish are going to benefit.
Still ahead, scientists are experimenting with a lamprey luring cologne.
It's actually quite amazing that just this hose becomes the love of these females' life for about an hour and a half.
When Silent Invaders continues. What looks like science fiction is actually science fact. Dedicated technicians prepare to do their part in ridding the Great Lakes of the predatory sea lamprey, one of the many harmful invasive species now living in the Great Lakes. On any given day, just before the spawning season begins, thousands of captured male lampreys await their fate. This is where they will be sterilized by people in protective hazmat suits. It's a control method developed in 1991 after 20 years of study, and fishery biologist Michael Toohey has played a vital role.
We're very proud of the sea lamprey sterilization program. To our knowledge, it's the only such program in existence anywhere, chemosterilization of a fish species.
This is the Hammond Bay Biological Station on the northern shore of Lake Huron near Millersburg, Michigan. It's where scientists discovered TFM, the lampricide that kills lamprey larvae in small streams, and balicide, used to eradicate lamprey larvae in the depths of the St. Mary's River. But early attempts at controlling lampreys, beginning in the 1950s, was with barriers, strategically situated in many of the streams where adult lampreys go to spawn. Some of the early electrical barriers used alternating current to keep lampreys away, but those were found to be ineffective because they often flooded or were plagued by power outages. Today, there are entirely new designs like this state-of-the-art barrier that uses direct current, which deters lampreys without risk to other fish or animals. The barriers are also prime locations for traps. In an attempt to go around the barrier, lampreys will find themselves caught inside a cage instead.
Oh yeah, we got a lot. We try to take very good care of the lampreys that we capture in this program. One, because it's the ethical thing to do with these animals, but secondly, because we need them to be healthy and viable so that they will compete successfully for mates in the river.
That brings us back to here. Just before the spawning season begins, lampreys captured from 25 streams in the Great Lakes region are delivered here by the truckload. The squirmy creatures are spit out from the mouth of the conveyor belt and dropped into a container to be identified. With strong focus and great speed, the workers separate the males from the females.
If there's 100 sterilized males in the river and 100 normal males in the river, females in the river have a 50-50 chance of mating with a sterilized animal, and so in effect we will reduce reproduction in the river by 50%.
The male lampreys are sterilized inside a contained facility where the air and water is filtered to protect the humans. The tedious process begins as each male lamprey is weighed. Then, one by one, tail first, the lamprey is sucked into the heart of a robotic machine, where a biologically active chemosterilant called Invaders is injected into its belly.
Which at this point is completely filled with gonads. The digestive tract and so on has all disappeared at this point in their life cycle.
Once the lamprey is sterilized, the machine sends it to a holding pool where it will stay for 48 hours to decontaminate. The process is repeated over and over for hours at a time. More than 1,000 male lamprey can be treated here on any given day.
After that period, animals are removed from the building, placed in fish trucks. They receive a small mark so that we can distinguish them from other lampreys. They're transported to the St. Mary's River and released.
It's catch and release with a twist.
People ask me often, why do you sterilize these lampreys rather than just, once you catch them, why don't you just get rid of them? And the answer to that is because we'd lose the opportunity to use them to cause the female lampreys in the river to waste their reproductive potential.
Coming up, if they can fool female lamprey into mating with a sterile male, then maybe they can fool them in other ways too. More Silent Invaders is just ahead. Beginning in the 1950s, both the US and Canada declared war on a silent invader that had infiltrated the Great Lakes. The war was declared because the creature was on the verge of destroying the Great Lakes fishery.
Commercial catches diminished as this parasite multiplied in unbelievable numbers. And then, tragically and abruptly, the lake trout fisheries of Lakes Huron and Michigan collapsed completely as the fish all but disappeared from the fishermen's nets.
In the absence of predatory trout, another invasive from the Atlantic, the alewife, exploded. Soon, millions of dead alewives fouled beaches and other areas. In an effort to control alewife populations, the states of Michigan and Ohio stocked coho salmon. A year later, Chinook salmon were introduced. The Yawkiak River near Sheboygan, Michigan is one of the tributaries where lampreys coming out of Lake Huron could potentially breed. For the summer, this river is an experimental laboratory for Michigan State University graduate student Corey Brandt.
This is a field site for sea lamprey research where we test pheromones.
Pheromones are cologne-like scents that seal lampreys emit to attract mates and to signal suitable spawning areas. Synthetic pheromones could be a new weapon in the sea lamprey control arsenal. This part of the river is artificially divided into two sections. Corey chooses just one side to deliver the artificial pheromone and observes the lampreys released downstream to see which side they prefer.
Each sea lamprey that I release has a pit tag, basically a small computer chip, in their abdomen. And when they swim up and choose one or the other channel, there is an antenna that'll register that that animal went through there, and it'll be recorded, and we can then download the data later. When a pheromone that we collect from sea lamprey is extremely potent, I can lure almost 100% of the lamprey into one or the other subchannel, depending on which one I'm applying the odor to. And the benefit is that it allows us to identify which pheromone we can maybe investigate further and perhaps synthesize and apply to traps in the future to lure sea lamprey.
Conventional traps are only about 40% effective. It's hoped that pheromones will be more successful in luring males to what they think are spawning areas and attracting females as a potion of love.
It's actually quite amazing that just this hose becomes the love of these females' life for about an hour and a half.
Ever since the sea lamprey invaded the Great Lakes through the Welland Canal in the early 20th century, sport anglers and commercial fishermen have been severely affected. According to the American Sport Fishing Association, recreational anglers pump $7 billion a year into the U.S. economy. Environment Canada puts the figure for its country at nearly $500 million. It's no wonder the war against the sea lamprey is taken so seriously.
The budget for our program is about $20 million a year, and that protects a $7 billion sport fishery. So we actually have a very good cost-benefit ratio, probably the best in government.
It's a battle that will likely never end.
If we keep our foot on the gas pedal and keep control on the lampreys, we'll always have a sport fishery. If we relax and take our foot off the gas pedal, then what's going to happen is something we've seen before, the devastation of the fishery to the sea lamprey, which happened in the mid-1950s.
The Great Lakes Fishery Commission declared war on the sea lamprey over 50 years ago, and now they have it under control, but they can't let up. We need to encourage them, the state game and fish agencies, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And when you're out fishing, report all sea lamprey that you encounter.
We can look forward to the day when the fisheries of these lakes will be returned to their former productivity.